active work, and it derives value from inaction. So who are you working for when you serve God? Nietzsche would say, you're not really working and you're not really serving. Both your work and your service, and I'll say this again, both your work and your service for Nietzsche on this account are completely inauthentic. It's not real work and it's not real service. So to be sort of logically technical, he would say there's a gross equivocation in terms of both the ideas and the notions of, the ideas and notions are the same, both the idea and the notion of service and work, right? So I hope that was clear. Okay. All right. So the next bit, how the oppressed maintain power, right? So we're going to talk about how the oppressed maintain power, and this is note 215. And I actually want to read this. Note 215. Okay. Okay. How the oppressed maintain power, and we're going to go through, and I'm going to read some of these concepts. Nietzsche says, I'll read from the notes first, the oppressed, the lowly, the great masses of slaves and semi-slaves desire power, right? This is what he says right from the beginning, right? And this is the beginning of note 215. Again, as always, I'm using Walter Kaufman translation. Christianity as a denaturalization of herd animal morality. We just talked about the herd, right? Christianity as a denaturalization, we understand what that means, anti-biological, sort of criticizing, critiquing, punishing the biological, the natural, of herd morality, the masses believe this, accompanied by absolute misunderstanding and self-deception. This is sort of the discourse on personal immortality. Democratization is a more natural form of it, less mendacious, right? So that what ends up happening in this discourse is the oppressed, right? And this is very, very important, right? The oppressed are attempting to attain power, but the manner in which they go about attaining power, as we've seen, is to vilify all of the things that naturally make you powerful. So if I'm in a position of weakness, what I do is, since I don't have military might, since I don't have, let's say, intellectual might, since I don't have economic might, since I don't have political might, what I do is I demonize all of the characteristics that naturally make you powerful and turn it into a situation in which those characteristics, those natural inherent characteristics that allow individuals to become powerful, I turn them into characteristics for and characteristics which condone and warrant punishment, right? It becomes antithetical to power. Why? Because I don't possess those characteristics, right? And obviously, he's saying that this is the origin of the religious belief, right? Nietzsche would say something along the lines, I think it'd be a bit harsh to say it, but Nietzsche would say something. I mean, he says it in the opening chapter, right? Sort of a morality of what did he say? A morality of I just read it. No, it's on this. Yeah, the oppressed, the lowly, the great masses of slaves and semi-slaves, right? He would say that, you know, within the narrative of the Christian tradition, that Christianity arose from a population of oppressed slaves, right? So he would say that it would be a religion of and for the masses, for the public, for the oppressed. It's not a religion, it's not a practice, it's not a belief system for those who rule. It's a religion, an appeal, a mass sort of, a mass articulation of morality for the weak and impoverished. And I don't mean just financially weak financially impoverished, and not even, I wouldn't even go so far as saying intellectually weak, intellectually impoverished. It's individuals who lack these characteristics and have absolutely no desire to attain these characteristics, right? An individual such as myself, for example, who came up in, the hood, with an average intellect, I cultivated this, right? I cultivated my lifestyle based on work, right? There's a difference between cultivating to inherently have just a brilliant mind, and to cultivate, not a brilliant mind, but, a respectable mind. I think I'm semi-intelligent. I would say I was brilliant, but to be able to cultivate that, right? There's a distinction. The herd isn't, and this is important, and this is where I think a lot of people make misunderstandings, right? It's not that, people say, oh, Nietzsche's elitist in this regard. No, he's not, right? It's not that you have to come from the upper echelon, sort of, within society. It's just that you have the desire and the motivation to be able to cultivate personal excellence. As long as you have that motivation to cultivate personal excellence, you're not going to be like the herd. An individual within the herd, an individual who appeals to the masses, wants to do and be and participate in the mundane activity of the masses, and there isn't that desire to cultivate. Later we'll talk about sort of this desire, but that's just a quick distinction. So that the idea is the belief system becomes a belief system which appeals via public appeal, this seduction, appeals to the baseline, appeals to the masses, and it's not sort of the same appeal that would be enticing to someone who identifies themselves and has been identified by society as not mass. Okay. Now, what I wanted to do, just for the sake of taking it to the abyss, because when I started this series, I asked, when I do the Nietzsche series, should I go pretty deep? And overwhelmingly, people wanted a very deep lecture. What I wanted to do in this section is to show exactly how this process of attaining power is described in Nietzsche, and make appeal to multiple notes, specifically two notes, note 86 and note 215. So if you look at note 86, right, if you look at note 86 and note 215 in Nietzsche, you will see redundancies, and that's the example that I'm trying to do here. They're almost in exactly the same order. So you have to give credit to Nietzsche. He was obviously very methodical in his thought process that he maintained over, and this isn't something he wanted to publish, right? Will to Power wasn't anything he intended on having published. But even in his note-taking, much less his actual narratives, even his note-taking was methodical. If you look at note 86 and 215, you're going to see the interrelation between the development of power. And I've discussed this earlier in the notes. Control find, I guess. This is the beautiful thing about having a PDF that's searchable. You can control find note 86, and in the earlier discourse I went into a pretty methodical discussion on the exact same point, but now I'm going to take it a level deeper. So the first thing is I'm going to look at each note, note 215 and note 86, and reference exactly the same concepts. This is what I'm doing. So in note 215, he says the following. So this is page 35, right under a combination of 86 and 215. Number one, to attain power, they follow these 4 steps, right? So these are 4 steps for attaining. 4 steps for attaining power. First one, note 215. This is a direct quote from 215. They make themselves free. Right? And I underline it, right? They make themselves free. They ransom themselves. In imagination at first, they recognize one another, they prevail. Right? I'll read it again. They make themselves free. They ransom themselves. In imagination at first, they recognize one another, they prevail. The key point is the recognition. Right? The fact that we, as a community of oppressed people, recognize each other